Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. I'm really glad you're here. Hope you're ready for this one. Let's jump straight into it and enjoy watching. What jobs pay extremely well, but people don't realize it? Septic tank installation and repair. Septic systems are an unavoidable reality in most non-urban, suburban areas. They are expensive to install and require regular maintenance, which most people hire out for. My uncle owns a small septic company, 2 employees other than himself, in Nowhere, PA, and pulls about $200,000 a year in income in a town where the median is approximately $41,000. It smells, but easy money, he says. Agree 100%. The only catch is in most towns there's only one, maybe two companies doing that. So the only way to get into that business is to take over from someone or get in when someone else is exiting. That's because as the nearest city/town expands their sewage system, they lose more and more customers. There's generally not enough business to support multiple companies doing it. When the house I bought was first built in the early 50s, it would have been on a septic system. Eventually, that was replaced with the sewage system the village I'm a part of started doing water treatment. Where we lived when I was young, we were just outside of the city limits and had city water and sewage. We were right on the edge of the area they serviced. Now, a few decades later, there are multiple housing developments much farther outside of the city limits that have city water and sewage. I'm a lighting designer and director for private events and broadcast sports. There's a bunch of well-paid but somewhat invisible jobs in show production. All the department leads for big events make in the ballpark of $750 to $1,000 a day, and those who are really good and well-connected are busy all the time. Can confirm. Was making just slightly less than this 15 years ago working corporate productions and broadcast sports. One major drawback? Very, very long hours. It was not uncommon for my day to start at 4 a.m., drive into NYC from PA, set up, work the show, break down, load out, drive home, and not get in before 8 p.m. 16 hours, door to door. Sports broadcasts were better, still long, but usually working from the truck. Bigger footprint, but pretty standard setup based on the sport, so you could eventually do it with your eyes closed. And you typically get in a day or two before the event, set up and test, do the show the next day, and bail out. Still long days, but broken up a bit. Great money, but after about 7 years of doing it FT as a freelancer, I wore out. Took a job making less than half what I made in my worst year in TV, and I'd do it again. If you don't have a family, it's probably still an awesome gig. Surveying. No one sees this as a career choice. The ones doing it are retiring and there's a shortage. Work isn't hard. More people should look into this. Edit. Land surveying. For example, if you want to put a fence on your property, you need to hire one to look up the county records and define the boundaries. Had to do this a few years ago, and it took months to get one. Few of them explained to me they are all retiring, and no one is going into the profession. Someone said it's hard to get into, but due to the shortage, I think many municipalities are willing to soften the requirements. Not a surveyor, but work in a field where I interact with a lot of surveyors. If I could do it all over again, I'd be a land surveyor. I'm in an area with about 10 surveying companies, and all of them have a 2 to 3 month backlog and can charge what they want. Besides getting into it, the only other downside is that it has the potential to bring legal issues, lawsuits from neighbors, property owners who want to argue your work. Example, elderly couple who lived at their house for 50 years sells and moves to Florida. New owner immediately gets a survey and discovers that they actually own land on what they thought was their neighbor's yard, and part of the neighbor's driveway and landscaping is actually on their property. New homeowner hires a company to remove it. Then a 2-year-long court battle ensures with the surveyor having to serve for a witness and wasting time there. Elevator technician. It's on the more techie side of trade jobs, but still a trade job and makes good money straight out the gate. You do still have to deal with a lot of ups and downs. There's a lady that lives in a small town, like less than 2,000 people small, not far from me that makes an incredible living teaching swimming lessons. She teaches year-round and travels across 3 states to teach. Her lessons are a 20-minute one-on-one session a day for 3 days. She guarantees your kid will be swimming in those 3 days. She charges something insane like $400. but her schedule stays absolutely booked to the extent she has a sign-up day where people wait around like concert tickets are being dropped to text her exactly at midnight. She has a small team that works across different locations, but she personally makes about $26,000 a week with almost no overhead. Having taught swim lessons before, I want to clarify. 3 20-minute long sessions to get a kid swimming? If so, that's insane. Kids can learn quickly, but not that quickly. I'd hesitate to guarantee I could get a kid swimming at all in as many hour-long sessions. She must be a wizard. Having said that, though, I'm imagining teaching more proper technique. Maybe she was aiming more for fundamentals of movement? That I could understand more easily. She guarantees it. If they don't learn, they get their money back, and she gives them more lessons. I'm making nice living as a tennis coach. The job is usually not very hard. You enjoy playing with kids most of the times. Occasionally, it can be a bit thorough on body, but not always. And time flies usually. Do you need to be an ex-pro or D1 athlete to be a tennis coach? I played Division III and always thought about coaching that or golf. Depends on the club, but most likely, no. My teaching staff of 6 instructors, including myself, only has one former high-level player. The rest of us just have certifications and are good enough, 4.5 NTRP plus, to teach lessons. I make a nice living as a swim coach. I work around 25 hours a week, 8 months a year. I bank my loot and pay myself over the year. I don't work January through March. I take deposits for spring and summer lessons. My work-life balance is top tier. The work is highly rewarding, and I love teaching kids without having to deal with everything that comes with working in a school. I am in my mid-40s, and it can be tough on my body. I have a pretty bad case of golfer's elbow, but I have a great tan. Cloud sales. I dated someone who sold AWS storage, and their base salary starting was well over $100,000. But what really blew me away was their bonuses. They took home at least double their salary on sales bonuses. Some of them make as much or more than the cloud programmers and architects. It's kind of absurd. I don't envy people in sales. It's a high-pressure job that requires you to be charismatic and cheerful, despite 90% of the job being ongoing disappointment. You have to be able to let go of negativity like it's nothing and just move on, and do that day after day for years. Salespeople are a different breed. There was some graph somewhere, I'll try to find it again, that plotted number of people who can do a job versus amount they make. As you would expect, low-paying jobs had millions, and high-paying jobs had very few numbers of people who can do them. It roughly plotted a neat curve. But there was one outlier dot in the middle, a job lots of people can do that is disproportionately well paid. That job was project manager. Make of it what you will. And yet the company I'm in wants you to have invented the internet to give you a shot. Judging by the early answers, it sounds like any job that either leaves you physically broken, demands your entire social life, or sales, lol. Which is not necessarily something I would say the average person doesn't know about. I think the question was kind of hoping for non-obvious jobs that pay that don't involve suffering. I will say, childcare in high coal cities makes a lot more money than you'd think. Most of the couples are double income, and you can piggyback off that by being like a pseudo babysitter and charge $2,000 per month for each kid. And I don't mean like running a formal daycare. You can just put flyers around places of high economic activity advertising and undercut the commercialized daycares. Edit. Okay, it seems like a lot of these nannies may be doing something under the table to dodge regulations, which probably wouldn't surprise me either. But the premise of the question is fundamentally flawed. If a job is high-paying and easy, both in day-to-day and barrier to entry, people will flock to that job until one of those things is not true. If you have somehow identified some magical market gap, you have a real incentive to not let other people know about what you do. Most of the replies are either things that the average person absolutely knows pays a fuckload, for example, anything in tech, or comes with a huge catch, for example, hard physical labor, never being home, or just generally being gross. When dropshipping was a huge thing to get into, its easy accessibility became the very reason why it no longer became an easy business venture. The competition became insane. I myself am a CUE, something that for a while people thought was easy to get into and easy to do for high pay, which was true for a time until it wasn't. I do think the job has a unique set of challenges and requires a specific kind of person who enjoys solving puzzles to really thrive. So even maybe a decade back when it was easy to get into, it's still not an easy job for a lot of people. I got the idea of childcare from my coworkers who have kids, lol. I have a very real incentive to drive down the cost of this. I don't know, maybe becoming a scam artist is an easy job that pays well. Fake being rich and sell courses online on how to live the good life is a tale as old as time. Yeah, one of my friends was a nanny for a family for about 4 years. She made really good money until the kids were old enough to not need her anymore. She was bringing in slightly more than her husband, who is a carpenter. Considering she had been working at a convenience store before she somehow landed that gig, it was a life step up. She was smart and put most of the earnings away since she figured it would be hard to match the pay after the kids aged out, unless she could use the experience to get a referral for another client after. If you have strong soft skills, get an accounting degree. So many opportunities if you can understand the financial intricacies of a business and communicate effectively. Had to take 2 accounting classes, and both professors said, accounting is the language of business. Couldn't agree more. I don't think this fits the people don't know about it part of the prompt. Doctor, lawyer, or accountant is like the classic list of well-paid jobs. Merchant marine pays extremely well, but you basically have to give up your entire life on shore and have a thick skin because the industry is extremely toxic with long hours. Think basically the most toxic blue-collar job you can get where you never go home, but you're always on the clock making money. Bro, I think you need a new boat. The people I work with are great, and I have 180 days of vacation a year while making $100,000 right out of school. Yes, it's long hours. Yes, you will miss birthdays and holidays, but by and large, the people are pretty cool. Extremely well is a relative term. I know a commercial real estate broker who made $6 million last year, nearing end of career and not his best year ever. A financial advisor friend who finally had his $1 million year at age 50, which means he's only going up from there until retirement. Benefits provider, mid-50s, clearing $500,000 every year, basically renewing contracts. Garbage bin company owner, big construction bins. Started with a truck and a bin. Now mid-40s, 10 trucks, each worth over $100,000, clears $500,000 himself without driving anymore. Owning a plumbing, electrical, HVAC company. My accountant told me that of all his customers, they tend to be the wealthiest. My furnace went out on Saturday in Chicago, lows of 0 degrees Fahrenheit this weekend. Being a weekend and way below freezing, we were prepared to pay whatever was needed to get it ixed, because what other option beyond freezing did we have? Thankfully, it was an easy fix and didn't cost too much. 4 ways to make good money. Be inconvenienced with where you are physically, away from home multiple days at a time. Be inconvenienced with others. Deal directly with people and their issues and eat shit while grinning. Be inconvenienced with your hours, odd shifts, long shifts, non-traditional schedule. Be inconvenienced by doing stuff no one else wants to do. Planners or schedulers in the construction industry. They are always in high demand. Always. Project-based schedulers will need to be on site full-time, usually. There can be lots of travel and even moving. Some experienced schedulers can be remote if not project-based. They work on standards and proposals. 1 to 5 years, 75,000 to 100,000. 5 to 15 years, 100,000 to 150,000. 15 to 25 years, 150,000 to 200,000 plus. If you travel, you get per diem or relo package. I don't get paid a lot, but I'm a first-year rural mail carrier for the USPS. By the end of my career, I will be making above six figures, have a pension, and essentially a 401k. And on top of it, I'm done before 1 p.m. 90% of the time, and still get paid full 8 hours of time for 5 hours of work. Sounds like you're in a perfect place. My mom's been a carrier for nearly 20 years and hates it because it's often 14-hour days during peak season, and she's suffered several major injuries, enough that she's considering early retirement. What made you laugh the hardest in your entire life? I nearly lost my mind laughing at my buddy's bachelor party, late at night, sitting at a table after much drinking. One of his friends, who is a lawyer, shared a theory that he'd heard. All foods can be categorized into 4 groups: sandwich, salad, soup, or ravioli. In other words, by this definition, a taco would be a sandwich, carb used to hold ingredients, open edges, whereas a calzone or a Pop-Tart would be classified as a ravioli. This is obviously a ridiculous position, but most of us were used to this guy's nonsense. However, one of the other guys at the table is from New York and took issue with this. He had never met the lawyer before this weekend. Things started getting heated. The more upset at these categories the guy from New York became, the more the lawyer doubled down and gave increasingly preposterous explanations and logic. What about spaghetti, you fucker? Clearly a salad, it's tossed ingredients with a dressing. Meanwhile, the rest of us were starting to lose it at how upset the New Yorker was getting. It culminated in the guy from New York standing up out of his chair, slamming his hands against the table and passionately screaming, "Pizza is not a fucking sandwich, goddammit!" while the rest of us were crying laughing. Good times. Edit. You guys get it. The debate below about the various foods and how to categorize them is exactly the sort of discourse that precipitates people getting violent at bachelor parties. I always knew nachos were a salad. Told the story before, but it's still one of my favorites. Small child, maybe 4 years old, is running with 2 2-liter bottles of soda. Maybe it was root beer. Lots of bouncing already. Then she trips, bottles go flying, and she faceplants. She lifts her head up to cry, and just then, at that perfectly timed moment, the cap blows off one of the bottles into her face, spraying her with soda and foam. Her mother runs over, still pushing the shopping cart for some reason, and naturally, slips on the other soda, and trying to catch herself, grabs the side of the shopping cart. She and cart tip over. A bag of flour explodes and covers the sticky child. All of this was done with the precision of a 1940s comedy short. It was really impressive. And sadly, I did not get to film it. My friend is from Japan. One time she was trying to say I was sitting on the bed, and instead she said, "I shit the bed." I knew what she had meant to say, but I started laughing uncontrollably, something that was not helped by her yelling, "No, no, 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 no," upon realizing she had royally fucked up that sentence. My mom had a Japanese coworker who would always come over and bring us snacks. This one time, she brought us these sweet apples, and she was trying to suggest we eat them with penis butter. "Kyoko, you mean peanut butter?" "Yes, penis butter." I had to leave the room. My 12-year-old self did not have the maturity to handle her accent, but neither did my 45-year-old dad. I teach Japanese students. A passage in our textbook reads, "She sits in the car," and 7 out of 10 students would read it as shits. I learned how truly professional I can be by never giggling, but the mental image of "she shits in the car," followed by "her dad drives the car. He drives to a car wash," makes me laugh when I'm off duty. Standing on the sidewalk next to one of those metal electrical boxes. My little sister is standing between me and the box, facing me. She shouts, "Tag, you're it!" and spins around to run away at a full sprint. She slams into the box just like Wile E. Coyote running into a wall. I have never laughed so hard in my life. The people passing by afterward just saw a 6-year-old crying next to an adult laughing her ass off uncontrollably on the ground. Eventually, I composed myself and picked her up and told her she'll be all right. I felt so bad, but damn if I wasn't suppressing giggles the whole way home. It was in summer this year, actually. There was a middle-aged couple walking in front of me with ice creams. The guy obviously didn't see the step ledge on the floor coming up and tripped over it. As he tripped, his flailing arm shoved the ice cream right onto an oncoming child's forehead. The ice cream cone stayed in place for a couple of seconds before it slid off. The kid looked like a fucking unicorn. I was literally crying with laughter, and it was so hard to compose myself. You had to be there, but OMG, the funniest scene of events ever. Back in the mid-90s, when I was about 15, my cousins and I had the house to ourselves. One of them thought it would be funny to put on a very questionable movie in the VCR. I warned him that my dad would be home soon and that maybe it wasn't the smartest idea, but he ignored me. We kept watching the front door so we could quickly eject the tape if needed. Well, that plan didn't work. Instead of coming through the front door, my dad walked in through the side door from the garage, and suddenly, he was standing right behind us. The moment my other cousin and I noticed him, we ran out of the room as fast as possible. The third cousin wasn't so lucky. Seeing us run away, and not realizing what was happening behind him, he yelled after us, "Hey, where are you guys going? Don't you want to finish the movie?" At that point, I completely lost it and collapsed on the floor laughing. From the hallway, I could see him slowly turning around and finally realizing my dad was standing right there. He panicked and started desperately trying to turn off the VCR, but it was one of those really old ones where the buttons weren't even on the front. In the end, he dropped to his knees and tried to block the TV screen with his body while apologizing over and over. I laughed so hard I turned bright red and could barely breathe for the rest of the day. My ribs honestly felt like they had been shattered. My poor cousin, though. Not only did he get caught watching something he definitely shouldn't have, but he also got teased about that moment for years afterward. Some friends from high school and I once decided to have what we jokingly called a man night. Ironically, we were all girls. The idea was simple: dress like guys and rent a ridiculous movie just for the experience. We were all adults, but none of us had ever watched something like that before. So we went to a specialty video store, and the moment we walked in, we started giggling nonstop. One brave friend actually went up to rent the movie, while the rest of us tried to act normal. I'm pretty sure we made everyone there uncomfortable. When we finally watched the movie, I don't even remember the plot, but the funniest part was the bloopers at the end. There was a scene on a beach with overly dramatic music playing, and the actors kept messing up in the most awkward ways. We laughed so hard we could barely breathe. The whole thing was completely absurd, but absolutely hilarious. Like 9 to 10 years ago, I was at a stoplight with my friend after we had absolutely destroyed a Cece's Pizza buffet. We were in a left turn lane, and a few cars ahead of us in the straight lane were stopped too. Suddenly, the back window of one of the cars rolls down, and this kid, maybe like 13, sticks his head out, looks at himself in the side mirror, and starts doing the most over-the-top, ridiculous pretend performance you've ever seen. Like he was absolutely committed to the bit. Me and my friend completely lost it. We were laughing so hard we could barely breathe. Then he suddenly stops, slowly turns his head, looks straight at us, still laughing hysterically, and gives us this look like, "Who the hell are you guys to laugh at me?" He just stared at us for like 20 seconds, and then he casually turned back around and went right back to his ridiculous performance. This went on for maybe a minute and a half, and we were crying laughing the entire 30-minute drive home. To this day, I still judge how funny something is on a scale from 1 to that kid at the stoplight. In college, my roommates and I had a fun ritual for putting away our groceries after shopping. There were so many of them we had to find a fun way to do it. I posted myself with all the bags in the dining room and the other 4 posted in the kitchen. Then, I'd just start throwing the stuff at them. Pretty quick, I might add. It didn't matter if it was glass, milk jugs, soda, it got thrown. And they always caught it. Until one day, I threw a gallon of orange juice. They all thought someone else had it, and it ended up exploding all over the kitchen. A gallon of anything is a lot when it's suddenly all over the floor. We all started laughing while trying to clean it up, tears and everything. But then one of my roommates looked at all of us and said, "It's a good thing it wasn't milk, otherwise this would have been an utter catastrophe." At that, we all broke down laughing, on the ground, in the orange juice. It was just too perfect. Our abs and faces hurt so much from all the laughing. In conclusion, I miss my roommates. During the peak of those "what in tarnation" memes, My college buddies and I road tripped from Michigan to NO for Mardi Gras during our spring break. About 10 hours in, when we were already feeling really goofy/bored from the long trip, a tire rolled across the highway in front of the car. My friend, while the tire is still crossing our path, screams, "What in tarnation?" And that stupid-ass joke is the hardest I've ever laughed. The school near my house had closed down, so me and my 4 brothers went there pretty frequently one summer and essentially made it our personal playground. One day we were there, playing basketball, riding our skateboards and whatnot, when a cop drives past the school and sees us messing around in there. Obviously, we weren't supposed to be there, and we got spooked, so we bailed and went to hop the fence and run home. All my brothers can manage the fence well, and we're throwing our bikes over and trying to get the hell out of there before the cop turns the corner. He probably would have just told us to go home, but we were young and worried. As I turn to grab one of the bikes, I look over at my youngest brother, who was probably around 6 or 7 at the time, got himself caught on the fence as he was coming down. He managed to give himself the most ultimate wedgie I've ever seen. He wasn't holding himself up on anything, but he was suspended up in the air, hanging by his underwear. All of us just stopped trying to rush home and started howling with laughter, to the point where we could hardly help my screaming brother down from his wedgie. I still remember seeing his ass cheeks hanging out from his wedgie as he was crying, begging for help. Probably my favorite childhood memory. Edit. I told my brother who got the wedgie to guess what I wrote as the story that made me laugh the hardest, and he guessed it on his first try. Haha, thanks for telling me all your wedgie escapades as well. This exact same thing happened to me, except I was an 18-year-old girl. Haha. I was playing sand volleyball with a bunch of guys and girls. The ball goes over this 3 or 4 foot high chain link fence, so I go grab it. I hop it, but my shorts and underwear get caught on the top of the fence. It was just tall enough that my toes barely touched the ground, and so I couldn't use my feet to lift myself off. I was just sort of hanging there, mooning every guy and girl behind me. I finally used what little arm strength I had to lift myself up and unhook my shorts. When I went back to the court, every single person was on the ground, laughing. I was in college. I shared a dorm with my buddy Matt. My girlfriend, my first real love, had done something fucked up and decided we weren't together. I was utterly heartbroken. I cried for days. I have a history of serious depression, suicidal tendencies, and it just sent me into a spiral. I remember laying in my bed with my arm over my face so that Matt wouldn't know tears were streaming down my face. He mentioned that an old friend of his from Round Rock, Texas, would be coming to stay in our dorm for the weekend. I didn't give a shit, and I didn't even really remember until the guy showed up. He came in the door, Matt introduced him as Chet, and I stayed in bed with my arm over my face. Matt and Chet were catching up, talking about old times, when Chet asked what was my problem. Matt explained the breakup and the depression. Chet proceeded to walk over to my bed and pull the covers off me. He pulled my arm off of my face and said, "Not while I'm here, not on my watch." I couldn't stop crying. He dragged me out of bed and sat me down next to Matt. We just talked. He started telling jokes. I wished to God I could remember what he said. Within 30 minutes, I had, for the first time in my life, fallen out of my chair laughing. I laughed so hard, I cried. He was that funny. The entire weekend, he had me laughing. I loved him for it. It was like meeting a brother or an angel or something. When he left, I hugged him so many times and told him I loved him. We kept in touch a little bit over Facebook, just once in a while. One day, I checked his Facebook at random. All of the posts said, "R.I.P." or "I miss you so much." I couldn't figure out what was going on. It literally made no sense. I texted his aunt and said, "WTF is this stuff?" She said, "I'm so sorry, baby. Chet has hung himself." His ashes were spread in Garner State Park, outside of Round Rock. It was his favorite place. I was at my mother's house when I got the message. She hadn't seen me cry since I was 10 years old. I tried so hard to swallow it down. I broke down. It has been about 6 years, and I still think of him and break down. But I will never forget the day he got me out of bed and said, "Not on my watch." I may ask Matt, my old dorm buddy, just what it was Chet said to me to make me fall out of that chair. I will never forget Chester Haydell. I love you, Chet. Edit. I asked Matt what it was that Chet said to make me laugh. He said, "It was nothing and it was everything. He couldn't open his mouth without being that goddamn funny." Obituary. At a party, someone started a riding lawnmower up, turned the steering wheel to the left, and put it in high gear so it ran around in circles. It was funny at first, but got annoying after a while, so we tried to shut it off. The problem is it was moving pretty fast, and we were all too drunk to catch it. Every time one of us would try to grab it and hop on, we would miss, fall over, and get ran over by the lawnmower. It got so funny watching everyone try that we couldn't stop laughing. We eventually started throwing rocks at it, which was even funnier, trying to see drunk people try and aim a rock at a moving object. This went on for a good hour before it ran out of gas. In a college cafeteria, my friend and I sit down with a few guys we knew a bit, but not really well. My friend starts asking them what they like, just in a totally vague and weird way, but very much his style. He then proceeds to say, "I like," and then lists completely random things for at least 30 minutes, probably more. They sat there with very confused looks on their faces. I was sick with what I found out was mono, and my throat was absolutely killing me. I thought I might die from the pain of laughter. So at lunch in Heisels, my friend group had one kid who was always the butt of the joke. Let's call him Simon. Simon always got made fun of because, well, he was an awkward kid. There was only 4 of us, and sometimes Simon took it a little hard. So when walking with him to lunch, I told him that he's got to push back and not just take it or nobody will respect him. I told him that when the other people bust his chops, he's got to say some shit back, and I'll back him up. We get to lunch, and I'm thinking I just imparted some great wisdom in this kid, when we see our buddies Parthik and Ranello laughing at some stupid joke. Simon, thinking they're laughing at him, stomps right up to them with a smile of malice on his face. "Something funny, Ranello?" he says as Ranello is in hysterics. Simon then grabs his pizza stick, the lunch entree, dips it in ketchup, and smears it all over Ranello's face. "You like that, you cheesy fuck?" Simon says. The hysterical laughter at the table, which was not directed at Simon before, now is. Ranello is now laughing at the absurdity of the situation, unable to get a word out, as Simon is molesting his face with a pizza stick, asking him if he's enjoying as Ranello mouths the words, "What the fuck?" between bouts of laughter. Eventually things calm down, and they explain to Simon that they were not, in fact, laughing at him when he approached the table. We were camping in the Netherlands, and my little brother and I were playing on a contraption that was basically a large vertical wheel. You could stick your feet in 2 holes, and there were 2 handles to hold onto. The wheel rotates, and we were playing around on it. All of a sudden, my dad comes in and tells us to move. We are doing it all wrong. He gets on the contraption, the wrong way around, sticks his feet in the holes, and holds the handles. He quickly spins 180 degrees and is now hanging upside down. After 10 seconds or so, the panic starts to settle in, whilst his feet are slowly starting to slip out of the holes, and a few seconds later, he smashes down onto the floor with an almighty knocking all the air out of his lungs. Whilst he is laying there, grasping for air, my mother, little brother, and myself are laughing harder than ever before. A woman who saw it happen from the other side of the park comes rushing to my father's aid and throws us a dirty look and exclaims, "Help this poor man! How can you laugh at this?" Which completely set us off again. What were you known for in school? Ironically, not showing up. Edit. I just realized it's not clear from my post what I mean. All the kids knew who I was because I was almost never in class. I never showed up for a senior photo and just straight up didn't really care. That is, until I saw the yearbook, and there was a section with my name along with a few other names, and it was labeled Camera Shy. Fucking camera shy? Fuck, man. There was a girl in the special education program that loved me, gave me a nickname and everything. Everyone started calling me that nickname, lol. We must know the nickname. I was a pitcher on the baseball team, and she called me Striker. Even my coach would call me it. I was the guy at the parties who didn't drink or do drugs. Never really got any peer pressure about it either. People would ask if I wanted some, and I would decline. That would usually be the end of it. I was the kid that got hit by lightning in class. After that, no one would talk to me because it creeped them out that I wasn't dead. Still think you got friends, lol? Think again. Can you tell us more? How were you hit by lightning in class? I imagine he was just sitting in class, trying to understand some concept the teacher was explaining, and then it struck him. Actually, I was in doing technical drawing, rulers and pencil back then, no computers. The lightning blew the end off my pencil and left a pinhole with a black star around it. Apparently, I had St. Elmo's fire all over me, which I didn't see. I did notice that my whole body had smoke coming off it. So did Mr. Lin, who clipped my ear for smoking in school. Lin was a psycho. He actually tried to put the blame on me for destroying the workshop's fuse box with said lightning. How I would dearly love to know. Inside a fuse box was splattered with molten 5,000 amp fuses. Took 10 minutes to get it open. TBH. Writing this has just made me realize what a circus my schooling was. Being the quiet bodybuilder who went from stick figure in freshman year to lineman by senior. I sucked at football, as it was my one and only year playing it, but people were impressed with my gains and even referenced it in the senior video. Being that weird bisexual Christian girl with giant boobs. I was creepy Kyle. Not for anything I did on purpose. I had a decent lot of friends who I'd talk to one-on-one, but I never talked in group situations. I just listened. Everyone who didn't know me, who floated into the groups from time to time, thought it was creepy that I just stood there listening. So, Creepy Kyle. I've since lost this nickname. So unfortunate to lose that one. My service dog. I was diagnosed with anxiety pretty early on, and in high school I was assigned a service dog. His name was Baxter, and he was a German Shepherd. I was legally allowed to bring him to every class, though I remember I got weird looks from every teacher and staff member for the first few weeks that I had Baxter. Most of the upper staff, like the principal and superintendent, knew about my service animal and had cleared it, but I'll never forget my history teacher's expression the first time I brought Baxter into their class. Drawing and being a fat comic nerd. Let me tell you, before the Marvel Cinematic Universe and things like The Dark Knight, it was not cool or trendy to be wearing Iron Man shirts and know who Nightcrawler was, or think The Last Hunt of Kraven was one of the best Spider-Man stories and debate it in class with your only other friend who understood that. I mean, it worked out in the end, as I went to art school, got healthy, and currently work on feature films as an illustrator, but oh, how times have changed. Practicing vampirism. I have no idea what that even means or where the rumor started, but I was apparently known to be a gothic, satanic vampire. I literally carried a pillow and slept in the back of the class every day my senior year. Teachers didn't care because I still got A's and didn't disrupt class. Now I'm a teacher, and fuck 17-year-old me. I was an asshole. Alright, that's the end of the video. I totally messed up while building the lamp holders that were supposed to keep the water from freezing. I'm honestly kind of mad at myself for that mistake. And yeah, you guys might be a little mad at me too. And you know what? This is officially the last time I'm upgrading a village in a snowy biome. I'm serious this time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. It really helps me out a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.